contouring market from a technological standpoint, as well as the statistics concerning the growing or burgeoning population of individuals that are seeking this unique and distinct segment of aesthetic medicine.
Thank you, Ryan. For those of you that are attending one of our many live workshops across the United States, we're going to go ahead and hand the presentation now over to your local representative, and we'll check back here with Ryan very shortly. For those of you who are attending the presentation via one of our satellite links, we're going to go ahead and continue the presentation now. To take a look at today's agenda, we're first going to discuss the body contouring market outlook. We're going to discuss body contouring trends both at a macro level and a micro level. From there, we're going to move into the body contouring demand online. What are patients searching for online in the body contouring space? And are you positioned correctly by offering the right technology that these patients are searching for? From there, we'll hand it back over to Ryan, whether you're live watching Ryan or you're attending one of our satellite links, where Ryan will discuss a technological overview. He's going to explain to you the technologies available in the body contouring space. He's going to discuss which technologies are actually FDA cleared for body contouring, which technologies have the most peer-reviewed publications, and which technologies offer the best results. After that, we're going to hand it over to the sponsors of the presentation, who are going to give you an opportunity to learn about how you can integrate some of these great products into your practice and start capitalizing on the body contouring market. To jump right in, I'd like to start discussing the body contouring market outlook. When we look back to 1997, there were approximately 939,000 surgical procedures performed, and there were around 740,000 non-surgical procedures performed. The delta between surgical procedures and non-surgical procedures was not that wide. However, when looking into 2012, or what happened last year, we see that 1.6 million surgical procedures were performed, but over 8.4 million non-surgical procedures were performed in the United States. And we'd like to attribute this to an increase in technology and advancement in the products that the patients can get, and also an overall awareness for non-surgical procedures that are available. What's amazing is that since 1997, non-surgical procedures have increased by over 461%, and we see that trend continuing. But to take a step back and really focus on surgical versus non-surgical procedures in 2012, as I mentioned, there were approximately 1.6 million surgical procedures performed in 2012, while there were over 8.4 million non-surgical procedures. What does this tell us? Well, first off, we see that patients are flocking to non-surgical procedures. They're choosing non-surgical procedures at a rate of 5 to 1. This also tells us that patients are 5 times more likely to get a non-surgical procedure than a surgical procedure. Now that we've taken a look at more of the macro level statistics between surgical procedures and non-surgical procedures, let's take more of a micro analysis or micro look at liposuction versus non-invasive body contouring. In 2012, non-invasive body contouring made up over $84 million in revenue. Now comparing this to its surgical alternative, which is liposuction, liposuction made up over $967 million in revenue. However, we believe that you're going to start seeing the green sliver of this pie grow dramatically. So let's take a look at how this revenue breaks down. For the $967 million that was spent on liposuction in 2012, patients fell into one of two categories. The first category is the patient that received liposuction on one area, and these patients were paying on average $2,830. The other category of patients are patients who were receiving full body liposuction, and full body liposuction is typically defined as hips, waist, and thighs. These patients were paying on average $8,085. Now, when looking at the non-surgical alternative to liposuction, which is body contouring, these patients were paying on average $1,103. Now, I know many of you are probably sitting in the room right now or watching this via our satellite feed and thinking, why would I implement or integrate a non-invasive body contouring technology into my practice and have a patient pay me $1,103 when I could get them to pay me $8,085. And that's not what we're saying at all. But what we are saying is, for every one patient that walks through your door who is willing, ready, and able to pay you $8,085 for full body liposuction, there's going to be 5 other patients that walk through your door who do not want surgical liposuction. And they would get non-invasive body contouring because it's safe, it's affordable, and it offers them a solution to their needs with no surgery, pain, bruising, swelling, or downtime. And if you don't have that solution in your practice, the only thing you can do is turn them away. So what we're saying is, you're going to be able to treat more patients by offering both surgical liposuction, if that's something you're already doing now, and non-invasive body contouring. So what does this tell us? It tells us that there's a huge market growth opportunity. When we look at liposuction, which again is the second most popular surgical procedure in this aesthetic space, and with over 313,000 procedures performed in 2012, and we say patients are 5 times more likely to get a non-surgical procedure over surgical procedure, patients are choosing non-surgical procedures 5 times more than surgical procedures, what does this tell us? Sources estimate that this could mean that there are over 1.5 million patients on an annual basis who would consider non-invasive body contouring if they knew a solution existed. Why? Again, non-invasive body contouring offers them a solution to help them meet their goals with no surgery, no pain, no bruising, no swelling, and no downtime. And on top of that, it also offers them a procedure that is much more affordable. There was a great report that came out in the first quarter of 2013 by the Maxim Group, and they said, we are especially positive on the companies that they're covering and they're exposed to the rapidly growing body contouring market. The Millennium Research Group estimated that body contouring procedures are going to increase to 155,000 per year by 2016, which equated to a compounded annual growth rate of over 41%. That's a huge market growth potential. To conclude this section, I want to leave you with this. If over $967 million was spent on liposuction in 2012, and patients are 5 times more likely to choose a non-surgical procedure over a surgical procedure, sources estimate that the body contouring industry could be worth as much as $4.8 billion. In this next section, we'd like to discuss with you the demand for body contouring we're seeing on the internet. Is your practice showing up online when patients search for non-invasive body contouring keywords? Some of you in the room today, or those of you watching by satellite feed, already have integrated non-invasive body contouring procedures into your practice. So my question is to you, are you showing up online when patients 5, 10, 15, 20 miles away are searching for the product that's in your practice? Are you offering the right product in your practice that patients are actually searching for? And then on top of that, are you offering a procedure or a technology in your practice, and are you showing up when patients are searching for keywords that aren't necessarily that product? For example, over 9 million times a month, patients are searching for non-invasive body contouring related keywords that don't have anything to do with a particular product or service. For example, over 123,000 times per month, patients are searching for laser weight loss. Over 454,000 times a month, patients are searching for fast weight loss. And over 1.1 million times a month, patients are searching for fat loss. What are you showing up for when patients are searching on the internet? And finally, are you offering the right body contouring procedure that patients are searching for? You see, there's really 2 pieces to this puzzle. There's the efficacy or clinical outcomes piece, which Ryan will discuss with you in this next section, where he gives you a technological overview, where he discusses FDA clearances and the results that you can expect and the patient satisfaction you can hope to achieve. However, that's just one piece to the puzzle. The other piece to the puzzle is to make sure that you're actually integrating a technology into your practice that patients are actually searching for. And patients are searching for technologies that they've seen on Dr. Oz, that they've seen on the Today Show, that they've read about in Shape Magazine, Self Magazine. See, you don't want to be the best kept secret on the block. You want to make sure that you're offering a technology that patients are searching for and that you're showing up online when they're searching for that procedure.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you to the individuals here in this room as well as those that are connected through our satellite interface. Now we're going to discuss the technological landscape of the non-invasive segment of aesthetic medicine. And we're going to go through all of the technologies that have inundated this market, learn about their mechanism, their utility, and actually discuss in great detail their FDA clearances and are they really cleared for a body contouring application.
Now, what guides, ultimately, a clinician's decision to adopt a body contouring technology? Well, just like in any other discipline of medicine, the decision should stem from evidence-based medicine. This is the framework for all clinic-based decisions. This is the framework that validates or substantiates a therapy. All pharmaceutical companies must ensure that their new drug is backed or fortified by evidence-based medicine. And we should have the same standards as it pertains to the body contouring market. Emerging devices should be substantiated or corroborated by evidence-based medicine. But what is the major pillar or predominant pillar of evidence-based medicine? That, of course, is the completion of a placebo-controlled, randomized, double-blinded, multi-centered clinical trial. The type of clinical trial that ensures the clinical efficacy is validated. The safety profile of that intervention is well understood and documented. Without a placebo-controlled, randomized, double-blinded, multi-centered clinical trial, there are confounding variables. And these confounding variables ultimately prevent the true substantiation of a therapy, of an application. We're unable to compare to a group that received no treatment, and we're unable to infer whether or not the treatment was the true impetus or catalyst to a specific disease's resolution or specific clinical outcome. Hence, the completion of a placebo-controlled, randomized, double-blinded, multi-centered clinical trial ensures that when a decision is being made within a clinic, it is the right decision based on the clinical data being presented, the clinical data being published pertaining to that particular form of intervention. And again, we should be holding any body contouring technology to these standards to ensure that the technology that clinicians are adopting, these technologies are ultimately going to provide the type of result that is well documented and deliver those results with an understood safety profile. Now, when we look at all the technologies today on the market, we are inundated with body contouring applications. If you have attended a medical conference, or I should be more specific, an aesthetic medical conference in the recent months, you will see an incredible number of booths of exhibitors within the exhibit hall. As you walk down any one of the aisle, you can see extravagant, overwhelming claims of transformative results in just a little time frame. And you can begin to appreciate the confusion that emerges, the confusion that is cultivated by this aesthetic medicine platform because of all the technologies that have saturated the space. But it is important to really look now at all of these technologies independently to see what types of clinical trials they have performed. And are they actually supported by the pillars or the framework of evidence-based medicine? Do the marketing claims, do they align with, or are they synergistic with, the actual clinical claims? And that's really the purpose of this technological overview. In order to understand how do we investigate each of these technologies, what are the technologies that are actually body contouring based on FDA clearances and clinical publications. And we'll begin to understand and watch a majority of these devices wither away because they're simply not fortified or bolstered by evidence-based medicine. So all of these technologies, the plethora of devices in the previous slide, can really be segmented into two basic categories: skin tightening and body contouring. And if we are truly providing a body contouring technology, well then it is imperative that we're actually delivering a body contouring application rather than simply a skin tightening application. So let's define these two terms first and foremost. A skin tightening application is the delivery of an external source of energy, and it is this external source of energy that modulates the overall structural integrity of the epidermal and dermal layers. Generally, this is through the utilization of heat. This causes protein denaturation and then initiates the collagenation mechanism, usually resulting in type 1 and type 3 collagen. This in turn produces a contracture of the skin. A body contouring application, however, goes after the fat cell, or appropriately named the adipocyte. This applies, or these technologies apply, an external source of energy that permeates the outer skin layers, reaching the hypodermal or subdermal layer, to now modulate the structural integrity of the hypertrophic or enlarged fat cell. This is accomplished by either inducing cell lysis, cell death, or utilizing a mechanism that affects the cell's physiology. However, the mechanism that is utilized, the overall goal is the same. It is the physical disruption of the fat cell. Now, as it pertains to body contouring applications, there are four primary technologies or mechanisms presently being utilized. There's low-level laser therapy, ultrasonic cavitation, or also we can classify here high-intensity focused ultrasound. There's cryolipolysis, and finally radiofrequency. Collectively, these four mechanisms truly represent the body contouring technologies presently within the space. Let's take the time to define each of these applications. Low-level laser therapy is the utilization of a photochemical mechanism. Now, before we proceed with the definition, let's just break down the term photochemical so that we're all in complete understanding. When we look at the root words, we see photo, which is short for photon, and we know that light energy is comprised of photons. So this is the utilization of photons to affect chemical, meaning the chemical reactions within a cell. So photon, to affect a cell's chemical or biochemical cascades. Photochemical. So this is a photochemical mechanism that disrupts the fat cell's protective outer barrier. and it is through this subtle disruption that we see the release or liberation of stored fatty material, namely triglycerides. We can see this is accomplished by utilizing a drug-like mechanism. So very quickly, to understand photochemistry, let's define the mechanism of a drug. When you have a medical ailment and you're prescribed a medication, you throw back the medication, you wash it down with some water. It enters your digestive tract, it's broken down, and then it's finally absorbed by your circulatory system. Well, there in the circulatory system, it traverses your body, seeking out a single receptor or target. Once it finds this target, it physically binds to that target or receptor. That physical binding alters the overall receptor's functionality and behavior. When that changes, it then signals a cascade effect that ripples throughout the entire cell, overall changing the cell's behavior and function. Now, we don't feel this process unfolding, but ultimately what we observe is the clinical outcome, the resolution in our medical ailment. That's known as an agonist effect, utilizing a molecular component to stimulate a receptor and influence the cell's own biochemistry. Now, this is an image taken from a peer-reviewed publication from several professors at the photochemical department at Harvard University. They performed what is known as a systematic review, looking at decades of clinical research to better define low-level laser therapy's mechanism. And what they found is that it operates in an agonist-like effect. They introduce a specific parameter of laser. When that specific parameter of laser is introduced, it stimulates a receptor. In this case, however, the receptor responds to light energy. Upon stimulation, we in turn change that receptor's overall behavior and functionality. Well, that then affects a secondary cascade within the cell, rippling that signal throughout the entire cell. That in turn changes certain physical biochemical reactions and overall will affect the cell's function and behavior. So by stimulating this photoreceptor, low-level laser therapy has the capacity to affect individual cell functionality. And this is really how it's able to serve as a body contouring application. But we'll get into the greater details of that a little bit later. The next technology is radio frequency. This is the creation in a mechanical means of thermal energy. This thermal energy then affects the dermal layer, resulting in a form of mechanical disruption, generally a little bit of protein denaturation, and then of course collagen synthesis. This is the introduction of a radio frequency delivered by 2 electrodes. This will then traverse a certain tissue depth, and that will create what is known as an impedance or impedance. And this will, as basically impedance is resistance, the resistance via friction will begin to generate a very localized heat. And that thermal component will alter the adipocyte, perhaps inducing or activating lipolytic-like mechanisms, as well as affecting blood flow, and as some studies report, the fibrotic septae. Overall, it is this generation of heat that yields the desired clinical response, which will be skin contracture and perhaps some effect on the adipocyte. The next mechanism is cryolipolysis. This is basically a popsicle-like paniculitis mechanism. So what does popsicle-like paniculitis mechanism mean? Well, let's just break down again the larger, more complicated term here, paniculitis, which is basically inflammation of the pannus, the adipose tissue layer. Now, how do they create this inflammation? Well, popsicle-like, we could imagine. Popsicle cold, well, they must accomplish this via cold energy. And if you reach that assumption, you are correct. It is the introduction of thermal energy, that's not meaning heat, that's meaning a colder energy. And it's that colder energy that then disrupts the integrity of cells that are being treated. And that results in an infiltration of immunological cells, resident macrophage or neutrophil, and that participates in phagocytosis. So you may not be able to see the image quite clearly, but basically we have an adipose tissue layer composed of adipocytes. We introduce the cold energy. That cold energy damages the fat cells to a degree, and that damage will then signal an infiltration of immune cells, as I mentioned, neutrophil or macrophage, and they'll begin the process of phagocytosis, basically viewing these damaged, perhaps dead cells as debris. And phagocytosis is that process of engulfing the cell to remove that debris. So at the end of the treatment, after the cells have been damaged and several weeks later are successfully removed by the immune response, you of course in turn have a reduced fat layer. Now the final mechanism is ultrasonic cavitation, and also in this category, high intensity focused ultrasound. Basically we're introducing sonic energy, and it is this sonic energy that allows us to ablate the tissue at a high level, meaning at a very focused level we can induce tissue ablation. And this is the result of taking that sonic energy, creating, very similar to radiofrequency, impedance or resistance. That resistance creates or generates a thermal output, and that will have now irreparable damage or harm to the tissues that we're targeting with that high focused ultrasound. So here's a beautiful image that captures essentially the mechanism of of ultrasound. We have the transducer located here. The transducer now takes energy and they converge at a confluence point. At that confluence, we begin to see what is known as a trackless burn or lesion. That's also crudely defined or described as a cigar burn. What that essentially means is that the thermal event is very localized, very focused, and has no damage or deleterious effects on adjacent tissue. So this is an application that has been well defined in the literature for targeting tumors and performing other surgical necessities. This is a very well delivered and focused form of energy that creates that heat, and then ultimately whatever cell is being targeted or cluster of cells being targeted, that thermal endpoint is just far too great, and that will result in tissue necrosis or cell death. Now, of course, we're describing these technologies, and we can begin to see, based on the induction of cell death and lowering the temperature or increasing the temperature, potential adverse events that could transpire. So when we look at the safety profile for all of these different mechanisms, we can see that they vary quite greatly. Here we look at cryolipolysis, for instance, what has been documented: bruising, edema, pain, as well as transient nerve damage, or what is this known as transient neuralgia. Basically, the lowering of temperature can have noxious effects on neurons that then can create hypo or hypersensitivity, where you're numb with the hyposensitivity, and then the hypersensitivity, it's a creation of uncontrolled pain, as been documented. Now, ultrasonic cavitation, the delivery of ultrasound, this again is creating that very focused energy or heat that results in tissue ablation. We have ultrasonic cavitation as it pertains to side effects. We have bruising, edema, pain, and then what's described in the FDA letter: subdermal coagulative necrosis. When you are utilizing a necrotic inducing mechanism, of course, that can have ill effects within the underlying integrity of that tissue. Now finally, radiofrequency. we see that it's rather benign in its mechanism. Only reports of bruising, edema, and pain have been reported. And laser therapy has a rather clean safety profile with no adverse events reported for body contouring. Even taking a step back, low-level laser therapy in many other applications has not reported a single adverse event. Now, what are all these technologies targeting? Now, we've already discussed or mentioned hypertrophic adipocytes, and that's basically describing enlarged fat cells. And that really is the true culprit when it comes to body contouring issues. As an individual becomes overweight or obese, it is really an outcome due to cell expansion rather than cell formation. Fat cells rarely form new cells. This is known as hyperplasia. These cells do not have the ability to form daughter cells, and that's perhaps taking you back to your biology days or biochemical days, but basically cells divide, they replicate, and then they produce two daughter cells from an originating cell. The fat cell does not have that ability. In order for us to get or accumulate new fat cells, stem cells in the area, in adipose tissue, differentiate into preadipocytes, and preadipocytes mature into adipocytes, and then they begin to accumulate new material. That does happen, but it is rare. What often occurs is that this fat cell can expand 1,000-fold in volume, 20-fold in diameter. And this is a consequence of lipid accretions, meaning the accumulation of lipid material, primarily triglycerides. Now, this can occur due to numerous outcomes: poor diet, sedentary lifestyle, or perhaps some genetic disposition or disorder. Many consequences can culminate and produce an enlarged fat cell, or perhaps several billion enlarged fat cells. And this is really what body contouring applications are attempting to target. And we have seen surgical intervention of an invasive light over the decades. Liposuction is the epitome of this. Liposuction has been targeting adipocytes for many years. This procedure goes in with a cannula, aspirates or extracts the material, and what the patient is ultimately left with is a fewer number of fat cells, removing those enlarged fat cells. But because of the innate fear that individuals have with surgery and just the overall risk that clouds surgical procedures, individuals today are gravitating towards these non-invasive applications. And these applications are attempting to achieve the same outcome. They're attempting to target the enlarged fat cell, but do it in a more subtle mean, or a more subtle approach. Now, we had this beautiful list of body contouring applications earlier in the presentation. There are 24, perhaps 36 technologies listed. And these FDA clearances represent all of those body contouring technologies. But here is the fundamental problem with aesthetic medicine, specifically the segment of body contouring, is that device manufacturers or representatives of these technologies apply for FDA clearances, but FDA clearances that have nothing to do with body contouring. And once these clearances are granted, they create these marketing sheets, and these marketing sheets say the next greatest body contouring technology: reduce your thighs, reduce your waist, get rid of cellulite, all of these incredible claims. But yet, there are no clinical studies to support those claims. There's no FDA clearance specifically supporting that claim. This is a systemic misrepresentation that plagues many, many devices presently on the market for body contouring. As we can see here, devices that are promoting body contouring are only FDA cleared for the relief of pain or improved blood flow. In no way does the relief of pain or improved blood flow indicate some type of efficacy for contouring the body, reducing adipose tissue size. And yet we see that devices claim FDA clearance and then they promote a body contouring application. So that is a great or grave departure, I should say, from the actual FDA clearance granted, from this independent institution. And we see other clearances such as the temporary reduction of cellulite, my favorite, the treatment of wrinkles. Treatment of wrinkles in no way, shape, or form indicates body contouring, and yet these technologies get this clearance and promote body contouring. So when we take out temporary reduction in thigh circumference, when we take out temporary reduction in waist circumference, when we take out the relief of pain, temporary reduction of cellulite, and the treatment of wrinkles from this list, and leave behind non-invasive body contouring of the waist, hips, and thighs, reduction of the upper arms, reduction of discrete fat bulges along the flanks and abdomen, and non-invasive waist circumference reduction. When we remove all of the FDA clearances in the previous slide, and we leave behind only non-invasive body contouring of the waist, hips, thighs, upper arms, reduction of discrete fat bulges along the flanks and abdomen, as well as reduction of the waist, this robust list withers down to just 4 devices. All of the other technologies utilize FDA clearances that include pain relief, improved blood flow, reduction of wrinkles, temporary reduction of cellulite, thigh circumference. None of them have or possess body contouring claims. Claims that have been granted by the Food and Drug Administration. And so with these 4 devices left behind, these are truly the body contouring technologies that are servicing the discipline or segment today. Sirona, Liposonics, iLipo, and Zeltiq are the only technologies today that are backed or reinforced by FDA clearances specific to body contouring. Now let's look at each individual claim. Sirona has been FDA cleared for non-invasive body contouring of the waist, hips, and thighs, as well as the reduction of the upper arm circumference. Liposonics has a clearance for non-invasive waist circumference reduction. Zeltiq has a reduction of discrete fat bulges along the abdomen, as well as reduction of discrete fat bulges along the flanks. And finally, iLipo has temporary reduction in circumference of the waist. Now let's take some time to discuss each technology individually. So Zeltiq, we know that it utilizes a cryolipolysis mechanism. So what is a cryolipolysis mechanism again? Well, that is the popsicle-like paniculitis, which is basically the induction of inflammation within the pannus or adipose tissue, utilizing cold energy, approximately 42 degrees Fahrenheit. And upon introduction of that cold energy, adipocyte cell damage is promoted. That then in turn recruits immune infiltration or immune cells to come in and perform phagocytosis to remove the debris of the impaired cellular structures. Now, we talked about the pillars of evidence-based medicine, the framework of medicine itself. And we talked about how it is imperative to have proper validation of high-quality clinical trials to truly demonstrate a therapy's safety profile as well as a therapy's efficacy, and how placebo-controlled, randomized, double-blind, multi-centered clinical trials really represents or epitomizes this high-quality trial. Now, Zeltiq, which utilizes cryolipolysis, is only backed by a non-randomized, non-controlled clinical trial. It has yet to undergo a placebo-controlled, randomized, double-blind, multi-centered study. In this non-controlled, non-randomized study, a single treatment was administered, 60 minutes in total. Now understand that 60 minutes is for a unilateral application. We can see in the bottom right image that an applicator must be attached to the body utilizing a suction mechanism. So that is going to be an administration in that one particular area for 60 minutes. So obviously, to ensure that the patient is not asymmetrical, it will be imperative to treat the collateral side or the opposite side. So an additional 60-minute treatment would be necessary. But in the non-controlled, non-randomized study, a single 60-minute treatment was applied. Now, it is important to ensure that the probe is properly positioned in order to have adequate suction. So let's look at the outcome reported. Dr. Jeffrey Dover et al. In 2009 reported a study that looked at 32 subjects. Well, of the 32 subjects, only 10 underwent objective analysis. So that raises questions, and these are questions that should be raised. What happened to the remaining 22 subjects? Why of the 32 did only 10 undergo some form of objective evaluation utilizing ultrasound? Now, of the 10 subjects, a change of 22.4% was reported. Now, let me be specific. This is a 22.4% fat reduction along the treatment region after 4 months. So the next question that should be raised, well, what does a 22.4% reduction mean? Now, I understand this is basic math, but in order to achieve a percentage, you must divide two numbers. So what two numbers were divided? Did they divide in inches, in centimeters, in millimeters? This will help delineate the overall clinical value or utility of this application. But today, Zeltiq currently reports all data or information as a percent change without divulging the overall change and what that means objectively. So is it a change in inches or millimeters? We will show you what that actually means, what a 22.4% change means. Now, with this information, they were granted FDA clearance for the reduction of discrete fat bulges located along the patient's flank and abdomen region. Adverse events include neuralgia, pain, bruising, erythema, edema, potential blistering, and numbness. That's the transient neuralgia that can arise following treatment due to the low temperatures damaging adjacent or local neurons. Now, this is a before and after image that was peer-reviewed published. This was published in Aesthetic Plastic Surgery Journal in 2009, volume 33, pages 482 to 488, by Dr. Sid Coleman et al. This is a before and after image of a love handle treatment with the fat layer reduction at 6 months. Image on the left was taken prior to the procedure. Image on the right was taken 6 months after. This is the observed clinical outcome 6 months following that single 60-minute treatment. Now, what is occurring within that tissue layer? What is that true reduction? What is the percentage reflect? Well, this is from Dr. Roy Geronimus from an American Society of Lasers in Medicine and Surgery abstract in 2009. This was also from a poster presentation. Dr. Roy Geronimus, as well as his colleagues, showed that after a single treatment with Zeltiq, the fat layer at pre-procedure was 7.2 millimeters. After that procedure, the fat layer changed to 5.4 millimeters. That's a change of 1.8 millimeters, or 25% in 4 months. So the 22.4%, or 25% in this case, that is representative, according to all clinical data, of a roughly 1.8, perhaps a little bit more, 1.8 millimeter change in the fat layer after 4 to 6 months. Now moving on to the iLipo technology. iLipo technology is a light-based application utilizing 658 nanometers at roughly, in a treatment session, 200 joules per centimeter squared. They claim that the utilization of this output parameter alters or modulates the integrity of the fat cell and in turn results in the release or liberation of stored fatty material. The quality of study performed at a cursory level is rather impressive. It is a randomized controlled clinical trial. However, the study required that individuals after the treatment perform 30 to 40 minutes of cardiovascular exercise. So each treatment was delivered twice a week for 20 minutes, and following the 20-minute treatment, individuals were required to complete 30 to 40 minutes of cardiovascular exercise. Now, I am quite familiar with designing clinical trials. I've designed many clinical trials, and I have implemented many clinical trials. And the goal of a clinical trial is to successfully evaluate an application. And in order to do that, you try your very best to remove as many confounding variables as possible. Variables that may inexorably affect your clinical outcome, either enhancing it or hampering it. And when you remove these confounding variables to the best of your ability, you are objectively and perhaps subjectively evaluating that application. But by encouraging 30 to 40 minutes of cardiovascular exercise, you are intentionally introducing a confounding variable, raising questions regarding the device's effectiveness and the requirement to complete cardiovascular exercise to achieve any type of clinical response. So the study design intentionally introduced a confounding variable, and it does diminish to a great extent the overall reliability of the data presented. Now, according to the FDA clearance, K111501, a reported 2.5 centimeter reduction across the waist was observed at week 4. So after 8 sessions, twice a week, at the 4th week, a reduction across the waist of 2.5 centimeters was reported. Now, based on this information, the FDA granted this technology a temporary reduction of the waist circumference clearance, and no adverse events were reported. Now, as you noticed with Zeltiq or cryolipolysis, I showed before and after images, because I believe it is important to show before and after images. However, it is important to show images that derive from peer-reviewed publications, not from a physician's website or not from the company's website. Hence, I could not locate, utilizing a general literature search on PubMed.gov, a peer-reviewed publication that included before and after images. Therefore, I have no before and after images to show of this technology. So we move on to the next application, which is liposonics. Now, liposonics applies high-intensity focused ultrasound. So this is the introduction of focused sonic energy that creates the trackless burn or lesion, the cigar burn if you will, within the subcutaneous fat layer. Hence, the subdermal coagulative necrosis that results will now in turn result in an immune infiltration, debridement of the area, leaving behind a collapsed or deflated section of adipose tissue. That overall will result in a contouring effect. The trial that was performed was a high-quality trial. This was a randomized controlled trial. The treatment phase included a single treatment delivering 59 joules per centimeter squared at 2.0 megahertz in 60 minutes. As we notice in the bottom right image, the technician must move an external transducer probe across the treatment area. According to the FDA clearance letter K100874, which can be found on the FDA's website, the outcome reported was 2.5 centimeter reduction across the waist at week 12. So to reiterate that point, a 2.5 centimeter reduction was observed at week 12 across the waist following a single administration with this technology. So based on this clinical change at week 12, the FDA granted Liposonics a non-invasive waist circumference reduction clearance, again K100874. Adverse events were reported in the FDA clearance letter. This includes thermal injury or burns, mechanical injury, and inflammation, foreign body response. So obviously if you're promoting subdermal coagulative necrosis, intentionally causing a lesion, an immune response inexorably will transpire as that material requires some form of debridement through that phagocytic process. Additionally, because of the rather aggressive nature of this mechanism, the FDA also issued patient restrictions. Patients can only receive treatment if they have a fat layer more than 1 centimeter in thickness. So if a patient has 1 centimeter or less in fat pad thickness, they are unable to undergo the treatment. Because if that transducer probe is placed over this area, then that trackless lesion or burn, or cigar burn, will occur along the muscle tissue or connective tissue layer, and that could in turn result in serious adverse events. So you must have a fat pad minimal thickness. Additionally, the FDA identified individuals with hernia should not undergo the treatment. Well, there's a problem with this restriction because 10% of Americans have undiagnosed hernia. And so ultimately, if you place that transducer probe over the area where hernia is present, and that hernia is now pushing or applying pressure to the subdermal layer, raising that tissue slightly, if that trackless burn or lesion is created at or around the hernia, then that could result in tissue damage and produce serious adverse outcomes. Therefore, the FDA felt that it was necessary to supply in the FDA letter some patient stipulations regarding who is eligible and who is not eligible for the treatment. Now, before and afters of this technology. This is a before and after image from Seminars in Cutaneous Medicine and Surgery, published in 2009, volume 28. This is a 27-year-old female who reported a 5.5 centimeter reduction at week 12. So this is the typical response following the Liposonics treatment. Finally, we have the Zerona technology. This is, again, a laser-based technology that utilizes a specific output parameter of laser, specifically 635 nanometers with a overall treatment dosage of 0.95 joules per centimeter squared. These parameters, when delivered, promote a photochemical mechanism in which the enlarged fat cell's membrane is broken down temporarily. That allows for the stored fatty material to vacate the cell. As a result, what is left behind are deflated, collapsed fat cells. Therefore, the volume that contributes to an obese or overweight person's appearance, has now been successfully removed. The clinical trial performed to evaluate this technology was a placebo-controlled, randomized, double-blinded, multi-centered clinical study, a study that did not include dietary components, did not include supplements, and did not include lymphatic stimulation. Therefore, the clinical trial evaluated an active Zerona and compared it with a sham or placebo Zerona. The treatment protocol includes 6 treatments delivered in 2 weeks, so that's an every other day protocol. So patients received in this study treatments on Monday, Wednesday, Friday the first week, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday the second week. Each treatment requires 20 minutes of anterior stimulation and 20 minutes of posterior stimulation. Therefore, the overall treatment length is 40 minutes, 20 minutes front, 20 minutes back. The waist, hips, and thighs were treated concurrently. After 2 weeks, patients receiving actual laser treatment lost on average 9.1 centimeters. Now that is a collective reduction, so it is imperative to break down the individual measurement points. Starting with the waist, in 2 weeks, subjects reported a loss of 2.5 centimeters. Patients across the hip reported a 2.7 centimeter reduction. Left and right thighs lost 1.7 centimeters and 2.2 centimeters respectively at the end of week 2. So overall, with this photochemical mechanism, patients after receiving 2 weeks of treatment in that second week lost a combined reduction of 9.1 centimeters. As a result, the FDA granted this technology a clearance for non-invasive body contouring of the waist, hips, thighs, and upper arms. FDA clearances K082609 and K121690. In the clinical trial, no adverse events were reported. Now, in looking at the before and after images, this before and after image was taken from a peer-reviewed publication in Lasers in Surgery and Medicine. Jackson et al., 2012, assessed 689 subjects in this peer-reviewed publication. This 23-year-old female demonstrated a reduction of 2.3 inches or 5.8 centimeters across her waist in just 2 weeks. So at the end of the second week, after receiving every other day for 2 weeks, this young lady reported a 5.8 centimeter reduction across her waist. So overall, let's now look at the 4 technologies that have earned body contouring clearances in the eyes of the FDA, that have completed the necessary clinical trials to substantiate the overall efficacy and safety for body contouring of specific anatomical regions. So starting back with the FDA clearances, Zerona is FDA cleared for non-invasive body contouring of the waist, hips, thighs, and upper arms. Zeltiq is FDA cleared for the reduction of discrete fat bulges along the flanks and abdomen only. Liposonics is FDA cleared for waist circumference reduction. And the iLipo technology is temporary reduction in circumference of the waist. Now results. Zerona reduces in 2 weeks a combined reduction of 9.1 centimeters, or specifically talking about the waist, a 2.5 centimeter reduction along the waist in just 2 weeks. Zeltiq reported a 1.8 millimeter change in fat bulges after waiting 12 to 16 weeks. Now, to really put into perspective, what is a change of 1.8 millimeters? Well, your lead pencil tip, what you write with your lead pencil, That lead pencil is roughly 1.8 millimeters. So that is the reported change in 12 to 16 weeks. Liposonics reported a 2.55 centimeter change after 12 weeks. And finally, iLipo reported a 2.5 centimeter reduction after 4 weeks. The time for treatment of the waist, hips, and thighs. Sirona delivers 6 40-minute treatments. So in order to deliver or achieve a 9.1 centimeter reduction, it requires a 240-minute time investment on the patient's part, 6 treatments, each 40 minutes in length. To achieve a 1.8 millimeter change after 12 to 16 weeks, that requires roughly 120 minutes. I included 120 minutes simply because most patients are going to want a bilateral treatment, so the 60 minutes required to treat one side is not going to be adequate or appropriate, hence the inclusion of 120 minutes. Liposonics can achieve a treatment of the waist in 60 minutes, but if you want to treat more of the waist, hips, and thighs, although that is off-label, if you choose to treat that, it will require greater than 60 minutes. And then finally, 4 weeks, it's going to require greater than 120 minutes for the iLipo technology to treat waist, hips, and thigh. Looking at the publications, this is again an essential element for evidence-based medicine. Looking at the total number of peer-reviewed publications, Sirona has 19, Zeltiq 5, Liposonics has earned 6 peer-reviewed publications, and the iLipo technology 1. Possible side effects, Sirona has 0 side effects reported today. According to Zeltiq's FDA letter, there's neuralgia, pain, bruising, erythema, edema, blistering, and numbness. Liposonics, burn, erythema, pain, edema, and subdermal coagulative necrosis. And the iLipo technology today has reported no side effects. And then finally, the technician requirement. The Sirona application requires no technician. Zeltiq, although once you set that applicator to the tissue, it is feasible to exit the room. However, once the device detects an inappropriate alignment or the suction has in some way altered, the device will automatically shut down. Hence, it will require technicians to continue to go back into the room to perhaps reinitiate the device or ensure that the suction mechanism is appropriately functioning. The Liposonics technology, as we saw, requires that the transducer probe is moved from one portion of tissue to the next portion, so that is technician dependent. And then finally, the iLipo device does not require a technician. So overall, it was a lot of information, and we're approaching 52 minutes of a great conversation. And so now with this information, you have to evaluate each component independently to determine what technology to adopt. For instance, if you're looking to treat larger individuals or patients that have fat outside of the waist or flanks or abdomen, patients that have fat in the thighs, as well as the waist and hips, as maybe perhaps the upper arms, what technology would be appropriate? If you're not looking to treat all those areas, then a Zeltiq or Liposonics may be appropriate. But if you're looking to diversify your patient base, to recruit a greater number of patients, treating more areas may be appropriate in recruiting new patients or prospective clients. Also, there's the time investment. Are you willing to have the patient commit to more time to achieve the results much faster? Or would you rather have a smaller time footprint but have the patient wait anywhere between 3 to 4 months to see a 1.8 millimeter change or a 2.5 centimeter reduction? This takes into consideration the technician requirements, the time requirements. Can a procedure room be occupied for over 120 minutes, or is a 40-minute treatment appropriate to get that patient in and out? So it's important to weigh out the time commitment and when the result will manifest. For instance, if you are a young clinic and you need a powerful tool in marketing such as patient word of mouth, having patients tweet on their overall success, well, a 2-week result may be appropriate because you get results quicker. That means more patients are going to be talking about the procedure, about their results, rather than waiting 12 to 16 weeks or 12 weeks for a clinical response to finally manifest before a patient can begin talking about that procedure. And will that enthusiasm be lost because of the time frame? So these are all questions that you have to answer as clinicians before adopting a technology. And then finally, the framework in which each technology stands on. The framework, I should say, of evidence-based medicine. Does the technology have enough peer-reviewed publications? Does the technology have enough clinical validation within the well-defined, appropriate parameters of a level 1 clinical trial? And so based on all of this information, it is from that can you glean what technology will be appropriate. And it comes down to the due diligence. Not trusting the sales representative. Although we love our sales representatives, they're honest, hard workers. It's asking for the publications. It's asking for the FDA clearance letters. It's actually reading the information yourself to reach certain conclusions. That's where you're going to understand the true potential of an application, its true efficacy, its true safety profile, rather than trusting the marketing literature or the sales representative. Getting to the heart of the data, dissecting that data so that you can truly appreciate the limitations and potentiality for these treatments. So with that being said, as we approach now the 56-minute time point for the technologies conversation, I hope I was able to elucidate overall what technologies are on the market and what technologies have actually been validated for the body contouring application. So I really do appreciate your time, your attention, and due to time's sake, I'm more than happy to answer any questions at the end of the conversation, but no, at this time we're going to move into the sponsored portion. So I'd like to thank you again for your time, and I look forward to any future questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Ryan, thank you so much for that great presentation. I certainly enjoyed it, and I hope that all of you did as well. Hello, everyone. My name is Kelly Guest, and I am the Director of North American Sales for Primcogent Solutions. And Primcogent Solutions has the sole distribution rights to the Zerona brand technology. And we're very proud to represent this brand and to enjoy the evolution of the brand through the course of time since the FDA clearance, and believe that the technology is a true pioneer in the body contouring space. And what I'd like to do in this relatively short presentation is just provide you with some information in terms of not only the brand and what makes it unique and exclusive to the marketplace, but also what we as Primcogent provide as a company to aid you in your success, because we do believe that we have not only a great technology, but we have a great program to help you in your efforts to create a terrific clinical proposition as well as a terrific financial proposition for the practice. Because of the popularity and the unique nature of the technology, Zerona has enjoyed a number of media spots, whether that is via television or print media. And these are just some examples of some of the programs and magazine articles that where the brand was featured. Programs like The Doctors, Dr. Oz, Nightline, Today, Good Morning America, and so on. So what this means is that the media is interested in current and exciting things to share with consumers, and Zerona definitely fits into that criteria. And what that translates to is the fact that it creates a market, an excited market of patients who will actively go out and find clinics to where they can seek out these types of treatments. What you see on this slide is a quotation from one of our customers, and this is actually a multiple location medical facility, and they've just added a number of additional Zeronas to their locations just since December of this year. But this was a quote that they had given to Fox News, and I will quote them as saying, "We've been blown away by the success we've had. The treatments change lives and confidence as well as physical appearance." And this is a quotation I think that you could probably hear from the vast majority of our customers. And as the brand has transformed over the course of time since it initially received FDA clearance, we've been able to really fine-tune and hone in on protocol and training nuances that have, since today, or as of today, are providing very, very consistent results to the point where, again, you will hear this from nearly every customer that we have out there in terms of the clinical outcome and the patient experience with the Zerona brand. So we're very, very proud of that. So when it comes to the body contouring space, and I know that many of you are well entrenched in aesthetics, it really comes down to, your success really comes down to selecting the right product and including the right marketing program, because of course you have to let your patients know that you have these type of services. If you can do that and meld it well, that's going to equate to revenue. And at the end of the day, I know that that's what we're here for. We're here to provide a great clinical proposition as well as an excellent financial proposition for the practice. So you take market demand, you select a technology that is valid and a marketing program to get you there, and again, that's where you see success. And hopefully I'll be able to illustrate the way that Primcogent Solutions and the Zerona brand will help you achieve all of those things. I recognize that many of you probably have some level of non-invasive body contouring technology in your practice. Some of you may not. But just to highlight why we feel that the Zerona is the right product for the vast majority of clinicians, simply because we feel that it's going to provide the best patient experience with the best possible clinical outcome of any of the technologies in the marketplace. And at the end of the day, there's not any patient that presents with the same clinical indication. And sometimes it's nice to have multiple utilities within your practice depending on the patient's circumstances. So particular to Zerona, we're proud to say that we're the only non-invasive device FDA cleared for the circumferential reduction of the waist, hips, thighs, and most recently we received clearance from the FDA based on a fantastic study that was performed by Dr. Mark Nestor, dermatologist in Miami, Florida, for the upper arms. And I'm happy to provide you with any of the studies that have given us FDA clearance or have substantiated the technology, as we have currently 19 peer-reviewed, published clinical studies that I'm happy to share with you. But particular to arms, this is a very exciting development for our company because there's very little to no solutions currently available, certainly not in the non-invasive space, for treating the upper arms. And this is a clinical indication that has a very wide range of clinical opportunity for all of you because, again, there's just no solution available. The Zerona is the only device that enables you to provide a 360-degree treatment of the waist, hips, thighs, and arms concurrently in just 40 minutes. And this is important because it's important to give the even contouring of a body versus just having the ability to spot treat certain pockets or areas where there is an accumulation of fatty content. With Zerona, there's zero pain, bruising, swelling, downtime, or side effects. And again, the science is extremely interesting in terms of how we can create this environment, which obviously is very important for patients, due to the photochemical type science involved in our technology. And again, our studies clearly highlight the way that this technology is designed. There's a very high level of customer and patient satisfaction, customer being you, the physicians. Incredibly high brand awareness in the non-invasive body contouring space. The other great thing about our technology is you can 100% delegate the treatment to staff. Because of the simplicity of the way that the system is designed, it is pre-programmed, and one of the best features is that it's unmanned. Once you get the patient settled on the table and you get the diodes set appropriately from the focal distance of the laser aperture to the patient, you literally press go, and the treatment is unmanned for 20 minutes. Once 20 minutes of treatment has gone by, it will shut down, and the laser clinician will have to go back in there. The patient will turn over, and you'll set the diodes again, and then press go, and the patient is treated for another 20 minutes for a total of 40 minutes. We have a low-risk rental model that I'd be happy to share with you. We have the opportunity to purchase it. It just depends on your patient profile and the volume that you might have within your practice. But we recognize that in this economy that there are challenges that do exist, and that not all two clinics are the same. And so we've tried to come up with programs that will work for every scenario, whether it is an opportunity to get into the market or to utilize the technology for a period of time that you're comfortable with an out clause, if you will, or we do have some aggressive pricing programs that are available as well. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit in the back end of the presentation. And again, it just presents incremental revenues and terrific profits for the practice. So in terms of marketing, we really try to be a comprehensive company that will provide you with a number of marketing ancillary support tools to aid you in your success. So when you look at marketing a product or a procedure in the aesthetic space, these are some things that we provide along with the Zerona brand. Search engine marketing, search engine optimization. We have a number of items that will assist you in your social media, and we all know that social media is certainly growing in popularity and has become a wonderful way to advertise your clinic and your services. Public relations, we can help you with things like that. We have a marketing concierge program, which I'll highlight here in an upcoming slide. We have pre-made television commercials that you can use, and we can certainly help you customize those to work for your practice. And we have internal marketing materials as well. So in terms of the internal marketing materials, these are some things that we will provide our customers, such as patient brochures, acrylic stands with inserts, media highlights, with a DVD that we've compiled, custom direct mail campaigns, we can assist you with that, email blast templates, pop-up banners, posters, mirror clings, more online in the physician portal, which is a portal that is specific to our customers that will again aid you with your marketing materials in an effort to help you be very successful. So I'll go back to a statement that I made earlier, and I think this is obviously elementary and evident to everyone, that success in your ability to earn revenues are going to 100%, it's based on selecting the right product and the right marketing program and or the right marketing partners to help you in your revenue generation mission. Primcogent Solutions has selected a partnership with Yodel, and I know that many of you may be familiar with Yodel, but what they do is they do an amazing job at search engine optimization and search engine marketing for companies. And what we've done to date, and I'll just share with you some examples of statistics that we've drawn from our current customers that have been using this service. And we provide this service, by the way, to all of our new customers, because we feel very passionately that your success is our success, and we want to get you kicked off immediately to a good start. And this relationship that we have developed with Yodel and the services that we're providing at our cost have proven to be just that. So when you look at these statistics that we have been able to draw from our experience with Yodel, that there are in any given local market, there are approximately 5,000 patients per month searching for non-invasive body contouring procedures, such as Zerona. Of those patients, and particular to our customer base, because of the way that Yodel has helped our customers leverage their search engine optimization and search engine marketing on the internet, the average practice is receiving approximately 27 patient calls per month. And when you look at the cost associated with securing that patient, because there are some ancillary services that some of our customers have decided to secure with Yodel outside of what we provide, the cost of securing that patient is only $34, period. And that's a very rare find in aesthetics, to be able to secure a patient for such a limited amount of dollars spent in marketing. So when you break it down and you look at what does that really mean to the practice in terms of revenue impact, if you take the average of 27 calls that our customers are receiving through the Yodel services, and let's just be conservative and say that there's a 30% close rate based on patient consultation, and we're even going to lowball it to the revenue per patient. In other words, for the particular procedure, say that the office is collecting just a little over $1,000. And the reason we've come up with this particular 1,103 is that we just did a survey amongst our patients to find out what they're charging for the package, for the Zerona package, and this was the average across the United States. So in some markets it's higher, some markets it may be a little bit lower, but this is very conservative. So what that equates to is a revenue stream of $8,934 per month. Not bad for a patient cost of $34 per month to secure that patient. What you see on the slide is an example of our physician base that highlights the number of keywords that are ranking on Yodel, Google, and Bing in the first 90 days of the services, utilizing the services. And you can see that this is very, very strong and will aid in, again, that revenue generation. And I think this is a great slide to illustrate the value of the program and the partnership. The other great thing with the program is that along with the services, and Yodel does a great job of working with the account to ensure specific success in a specific market, there are a number of services on the marketing dashboard that come with the program as well, to where you can at any given time during the day access your marketing dashboard through Yodel, and it will provide a number of very valuable statistics to show you how efficient the program is working, as well as how well the practice is doing in accessing those patients that are calling in. What you see at the top of the screen is an example of specific calls that are coming into the practice because of the search engine optimization program that Yodel put in place for said physician. You even have the opportunity to listen to some recordings of calls coming in, so that you can get a chance to better understand how the person answering the phone in your practice is doing with providing good information to those callers, because those callers, again, are very, very valuable. And a lot of times there's a disconnect at that very point in time. I've seen it so many times in so many practices. So again, the just invaluable information to do your own analytics as to how the program is working and how you're responding to the calls that are coming in. So let's go back and break this down in terms of the revenue opportunity. So let's just assume for a moment that the average monthly payment for the Zerona system is $1,200 a month. Your break even based on our recommended cost per package, which is $1,500, your break even point is basically one patient per month. If you are in an area, we can even go back to look at the average of 1,103 based on a recent survey of our customers across the country. You know, it's just a little over one patient per month. Call it 2 patients per month, and you're in the positive cash flow. The system will come with a standard 1 year of warranty for parts, labor, and service. Once you elect to move forward with the technology, we will provide on-site initial training for a complete day, and it's very, very thorough training, and the feedback that we receive on the training is absolutely sterling. Again, we'll enroll you in our online marketing program with Yodel, and if you were to go out and do this on your own, create micro websites and invest in these individual pieces that come along with the program, there is a $10,000 value that we're providing if you were to go out and do this on your own. Unlimited online and virtual training and continued marketing support through the Zerona portal, along with the other materials that I mentioned in a former slide in terms of the support that we provide our customers. Let's talk for just a minute about revenue potential. And this is the fun part of the presentation. If you take a look at treating 8 patients per month and you estimate your procedure fee for 6 treatments at $1,500 a month, which is what we recommend that you charge, your gross revenue on a monthly basis will equate to $12,000. Simple math. If we estimate that your monthly cost for the equipment to be approximately $1,200 a month, your monthly gross profit equates to $10,800, or an annual gross profit of $129,600. Break-even point, 1 patient per month. Playing it conservative, call it 2 patients per month, because we do recognize that in some markets, $1,500 may be a little bit strong. If we take a look at the model at 10 patients per month, and we factor that out, you're looking at a monthly gross profit of $13,800 and an annual gross profit of $165,600. If you treat 20 patients per month, and remember, going back to a slide that I shared with you, where the average clinic is receiving approximately 27 calls per month from patients inquiring about the Zerona services based on our relationship and support with Yodel. It's very easy to get there. That doesn't include any marketing services that you'll do from within the walls of your own practice. Look at the revenues. Monthly gross profit jumps up to $28,800, and the annual gross profit jumps up to an impressive $345,600. Again, I'll go back to 1 to 2 patients a month, and that is your break-even point. Anything beyond that is pure revenue for the practice. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak to all of you today, and again I sincerely hope that you've enjoyed the presentation. And again, my name is Kelly Guest. I'm the Director of North American Sales with PrimCogent, and I've provided my contact information should you elect to reach out to me, and I certainly hope that you do. Cell is the easiest way to catch me at 972-523-1926, or email at kguest@primcogent.com. And thank you again, and we hope to speak with all of you in the very near future. Take care and have a wonderful day.